What's up, everybody? My name is Alex. I'm your host here on the Swole Friends podcast, as well as the co-founder and COO here at Swolverine. Swolverine is an endurance athlete and active lifestyle brand. We have over 33 different performance powders and daily health supplements that are all proprietary, blend-free, clinically dosed, and scientifically proven effective. We also offer one-on-one nutrition coaching and online personal training through the Swole Kitchen. But today, outside of the business, you guys, I am super pumped. It's episode 33, double threes. I don't know if that's lucky or not lucky or who gives a shit.
Like Larry Bird.
Exactly. But I am honored and excited to welcome our guest, Matt Vincent, here to the show. Our theme is going to be all about turning negativity into positive results and how to just be a badass, forging human being on the daily basis. A big kind of theme that I have found in collecting this information on Matt and all the stalking that I've done for this episode, as well as meeting him a few years ago, was just the idea that we can encompass this idea that the process is everything. And today in this episode, whether you're listening, you're tuning in live here on YouTube, is that we're going to learn some of the unique experiences Matt's had in his life. Anyone can go online and do what I did. Anyone can go on his Instagram and listen to his, stories or read his captions or watch the podcasts he's been on. But not a lot of people know what it's like to really sit down and have that one-on-one conversation, which is what I get to do today and what you guys as our listeners and viewers get to sit with us and do. So a couple of the accolades here. He's a 2-time world championship at the Highland Games. He's a multiple business owner. He's the author of a couple books, The Training Lab and The Hate. He's a creator of the Not Dead Yet brand. If you guys don't follow that on Instagram or pick up some of that merch, you got to go do it, and so much more. But he's an overall badass human being. So Matt, welcome to the show. Super excited to have you. Laugh, cuss, smoke, do the thing, hang out.
I'm honored. That's a hell of an introduction.
I don't know. I tried.
I'm honored, man.
You got a lot behind you,
It's been a fun run.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've been at it for what? I mean, I'm not trying to date you here, but over.
No, 20 I'm fucking old. You figure the start of it would have been when I got probably into strength sports in strongman would have been 2007, 2008. Mm-hmm. And then, a couple years there, a couple years in powerlifting, and then dabbling with doing some YouTube content and then writing an ebook and kind of starting the fitness world that was then.
Dude, yeah, absolutely. And you're kind of like a pioneer of it. You know what I mean?
Weird. It's really fucking weird to feel that that's true, but also feel like I was late to the game.
Yeah. Okay.
But I guess it kind of ends up being that because I'm still around. Mm-hmm. I'm definitely still in at least that generation of people that for some reason decided to fucking pursue creating content on social media when none of us understood what it could be used for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. I went through I was digging up an old contact email address, and I was going through a giveaway we hosted 4 or 5 years ago. And I was like, oh, look at this person. Oh, look at this person. Nobody's online anymore. They don't have Instagrams. They don't have TikToks. They don't have nothing. And I'm like, wait, where did everybody go? And like you're saying, you've been able to stay relevant and stay with it. And just I think one thing you have though is the authenticity. You're like, here's who the fuck I am. You either hate it, you love it, you're going to follow it or you're not. And if you don't, fuck off. I don't care.
So, whether to the benefit or not, very early on with any of the content I made, I just really didn't want to do gimmicky things. Mm-hmm. I can remember at the time on YouTube, there being a lot of questions from my audience for do a video explaining your tattoos. No. Goddamn grown up. They're also not important, right? And I just refused to do it despite that, clearly any advice, if you were telling someone to grow your brand was if the audience says do it, you'd fucking make it. Yeah. But I'm enough of a dickhead artist that if I go that route and I let my audience solely dictate everything I create, well, then I'm not making for me anymore. Mm-hmm. And I am creating for myself. Mm-hmm. As well. And so the only way I find it sustainable is I'm doing what I want to do. But if I've got to make a bunch of content I'm not passionate about to just chase whatever, I'll find something else to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's true because you've applied it in a lot of different avenues. You're not an influencer. Maybe you are.
I don't know what the fuck the definition is at this point. It's fine.
But you are a brand owner, you're an author. You have like these other creative outlets and have been successful at those outlets in your life. You've also been an athlete, very successful athlete. You've been, even in your body, like being creative in your body, whether that's like your aesthetic or your, art on your tattoos or the way that you look or dyeing your hair or not. Like you show up as you, but what have been some of the things that have like maybe gotten in your way of doing that? Like, have you ever felt like you had to follow the credo and follow what the consumer says or do what this person says or this agent, or like what have been some of the shit sandwiches you've had to like, been forced to eat and you're like, I don't want to eat that?
I think early in life, like probably in high school, right? Like I was more interested in trying to fit in for whatever that meant. And then because I had gone to college on a track and field scholarship, like one of the greatest things about going to college on a track and field scholarship, especially LSU where I was, is the throwers, we weren't very good on the track team compared to like we had Olympians.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was already kind of used to the fact that I was doing a thing that I was very serious about and interested in, but no one gives a fuck about. And yet it pays for school.
Mm-hmm.
So like there's a weird thing that like no one gives a shit about track and field.
Mm-hmm.
But I do. And that's all that mattered. And so that's what's kind of helped me follow like what else I can get good at is you have to chase curiosity as well. Because when you're curious about a thing and you're learning with curiosity, it's fulfilling. Like you end up in flow state because you're picking up so much. It's not like trying to, follow a lecture from a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And so just being able to stay, in that authenticity, being as authentic as I can for me, I just felt was sustainable. Like as long as I can be cool with what I'm creating and I want to do, I can always do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's shifted over the years, what I want to do, or really what I've been able to kind of boil down purpose at this point. And I just want to create for a living.
Do you have like a mantra or a motto or like kind of like a credo that you follow, or is it more so just like that creative instinct and like, I want to do this, there's not going to be anything that gets in my way from doing that?
The probably the closest I have would be like I'll say to myself quite a bit, like only I can build my dreams. Like I can't wait for anyone else to fucking help. That's not how this is going to work. Everyone's working on their shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I damn sure can't let anyone care about my dreams more than me.
Do you think that's something that's like kind of been a part of your personality since you were a kid, or were you raised with like that kind of standard? Did you, go through college and watch a bunch of people do their thing? You're like, why is that enough? Why is that good enough for you? Like, why are you being that if that's not?
I really did the whole standard thing for a long time. I went to college and then I tried to open a bicycle shop. Was the first thing I did was tried entrepreneurship straight out of college and got my ass kicked. And for a number of reasons, and mostly the 22-year-old me was involved in that fucking business. And so took some lumps and then made my way into a regular career and had no interest in entrepreneurship whatsoever. I had taken my licks and was going to happily collect a paycheck, but I knew that was coming every other week.
That you could put down at 5 p.m. and go home.
Yeah, as much as possible, right? And so I went into a regular job working in refineries on the Gulf Coast, climbing towers, doing more labor type stuff. And from there, I started doing some outside sales calls and then eventually got hired by a different company to do outside sales and not have to do the work part. And spent 10 years in that industry, building relationships and traveling and doing all that kind of while I started getting into the Highland Games.
Who did you meet someone who was like, hey dude, you'd be rad at this? Or did you find it on like?
So like, as a thrower in college, like you're aware they exist because it's kind of the history of where the throws came from.
Mm-hmm.
But like, how would you find a competition? Mm-hmm. I would have no idea other than at that point, we knew a guy in Baton Rouge who had done a strongman. And then I guess he had gotten really into it. this guy, Mark Cummings, and he turned us on to where we could find places to compete and just started competing in it.
Yeah. Yeah. And did you find that it kind of stroked like that competitive spirit or like familiarity or?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It flipped the full retard switch for me really quick to where like, I'm just not in control anymore of what I'm like my focus. It's all on this. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I loved it. I found it. It was everything I loved about throwing in college, but I didn't have to go to class or have all this other bullshit involved, like teammates that I didn't do well with at that point in my life.
Hey, fuck you, man.
It's such a singular sport. And so what worked for me was just full accountability to it. So I trained by myself in my garage and I threw in a field by myself the whole time I competed in the sport for a decade.
And it's an established sport. It's not, would you say that it has a bigger presence like over in Europe? Do you think that it's more established here? Like someone who doesn't know, like maybe in the Swolverine community who's like, I'm a CrossFitter or I do this, that, or the other, talk to it. Can you give us like the quick?
Sure. So like within strength sports, right? So you've got like kind of your traditional stuff like strongman, powerlifting, and weightlifting. Mm-hmm. And more classical, you'd have like stone lifting, and then you'd have Highland Games. So what came out of Scotland, it's been around for like 700 plus years. Predates the Olympics. And it's a great fun sport. And as far as like a great fun little sport, one that no one knows about, but like for the top 20 guys in the world who are professionals, I mean, I got paid to travel every weekend. They put us up in hotels everywhere. I mean, around the world. And then I made, 25 or 30 grand a year throwing.
Was that from the organization or from your sponsors?
So a little bit from sponsors, but so the sport's weird too. There's not like an organization. Okay. Like they're individual hosted competitions.
Gotcha.
And it's prize money because we're paid entertainment basically for part of like a festival.
Okay.
It's a fascinating little sport. It was very, very fun.
Mm-hmm. And you get to drink beer?
Oh, yeah. I drank quite a bit while I was competing.
I mean, it's definitely a little bit different, right? And I think a lot of our consumer base, like here at Swolverine, or maybe some of our listeners, are going to be like pretty traditional CrossFitter, pretty traditional like bodybuilder, active life enthusiast. And it's like, there's a lot out there that's not that, including rad sports like this.
Well, there's so many things, right? And what I've always been passionate about is trying to figure out what the fuck my machine can do. Yeah. Like I train with the purpose of it doing things for me, not to see how much I can fucking train it.
Well, and I think that's a theme across all aspects that you apply yourself into, right? Like, it's like, this isn't good enough, or tomorrow I'm going to be better, like death to the old me. Right.
Right.
And that's kind of this idea that like, even though tomorrow's like, who fuck knows if we're going to wake up tomorrow, if I am going to wake up tomorrow and I'm the same way I was yesterday, like I didn't do my fucking job. Right. And that's a lot of this attitude that you have. And like, kind of this, like, it's not like an arrogance you carry yourself with. It's just this air of like confidence and like, no, I'm going to take what I have and my talents and I'm going to apply them,
Well, I mean, at this point, I am confident. I do bank on myself, and I'm not confident in knowing that like I'm going to succeed or do any of this. What I'm confident is knowing I'm willing to do it until I figure it out. Mm-hmm. I've proven that time and time again. I've got the evidence for it. And so like, why not have the trust in myself finally? Mm-hmm. Who else going to fucking give it to me?
Yeah. Absolutely. Let alone, give it to you on a silver spoon. Like I think a lot of people expect it to be handed to them with.
Great. They can sit around fucking waiting for it. If you think anybody's coming to hand you your dreams, you're fucking terribly mistaken. That's why it's hard. Mm-hmm. That's why so very few people pull it off. And most people just commit to the life that they were given instead of creating one they want.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of this conversation of like, I think a lot of people talk about, oh, fail this, stand up. Oh, fail this, stand up. It's kind of you get to a point where after you fail enough and you're applying yourself consistently, it's like you get into this idea of like, well, fuck that pivot. Fuck that. What's next? Fuck that. Like you start to reach like this threshold. And so you achieved a ton of success at Highlands. But then what happened next? Like, when was that next trial for you? And what was that next thing that you sunk your teeth into?
So 2012, I win first world championship. 2013, I finished second. So 2014, I'm going back into that season really full bore. Season usually starts about mid-April. My father passes away from pancreatic cancer early April. And that's a big shift in everything for me.
Yeah.
Just so he had passed away the day before my birthday at 62, and I turned 31 the next day. So it's this really loud halfway through my ride type thing. And so, it took a long time to really process it and figure out what that felt to me. But from that point on, like, I'm aware that that's how this can all turn out. Like, no matter what I do to plan, right? Like, I get sick and fucking lose it all in a year. And if that's the case, like, while I'm in control and at the wheel of this life, I am fucking going, man. There's going to be a time I can't. And so I got that feeling, right? And then sure as shit at the end so I win worlds later that year. And then 2015 takes second and 2016 takes second. My knee's a little worn out. I had torn ACL in college, got it fixed, and then retore it a few years later at a skate park, riding BMX. And so I competed on it without the ACL for the whole time. And it's fine. And then
it stayed in place for the most part.
Yeah. Well, as long as I knew like what direction I was going, it all operated fine. But if like I had to react to stuff, so I went in to do an ACL surgery and it didn't go great. It just didn't take. And so we followed it up with another ACL surgery and it didn't take. And we followed it up with another ACL surgery. And so from February of 2017 to May of 2019, I did 9 knee surgeries. And then what ended with a total knee replacement. So going with this, dealing with death or whatever it is, right? Like that's death of a big fucking chapter. Like I knew at some point during that rehab that we're not getting back to competing. Like that whole idea of, well, when I get back, like motherfucker, you can't walk more than 200 yards a day. Like you're not throwing in this condition. You're not going to tough it out.
Yeah.
And so shit got real serious. But like, man, if I don't figure out how to get out of chronic pain, I'm not going to make it. Like it took too many options from me.
During that time, so like you're saying, like death to a huge chapter, complete identity shift, something that, lights you up from the inside out still, right? Like where were you mentally? Where were you? We know you missing a knee, basically. We know where you were kind of where physically, but where were you mentally, emotionally, and what was that journey like for you?
I was totally lost. I'm dealing with chronic pain. I'm aware that I'm not going to compete anymore. And what seems like at this point, right, that like I'm done traveling, I'm done competing. Like I'd already kind of felt like I was able to sneak an interesting, fun thing in my life longer than other people had. Most people I'm around were just kind of like in the life, doing the 9 to 5 and fucking going to the same place every year for vacation. They had hit autopilot and were fucking cruising, and it makes me want to die. And so I was hurt. I wasn't going to compete anymore. And like, that's all I could see in front of me.
It was like,
this is what it looks like.
Like I'm
fucking average from here on out. And it's just really scary. It got really scary. And so at some point, if I'm, had the honesty with myself to say, if I don't solve this problem of pain, I'm going to kill myself. I don't know if that's in 20 years or it's in the next 6 months, but I'll lose this fight. One day I just won't fucking have it. And So if that's the result of not solving the problem, there's no risk anymore to trying everything I can fucking think of. Like, fuck it. Try everything. And so I did. I mean, massage and modalities and trying to fix pain and surgery after surgery after surgery. And then, switched from opiates to using cannabis. And that made a huge difference for me. I immediately was able to sleep again, was in a better mood, which made me less shitty to the people around me, started giving me some different things to think about. And that was a really eye-opening moment because at that point in my life, I'd never really experimented with anything. I'm an NCAA athlete and, I drank because it's the American way. And I just had really believed, right? Like that I believed the bullshit that like at some point this will ruin my fucking life. If I use this tool, I will become a fucking loser. And totally wrong. Totally fucking wrong. And so like once that kind of big lie that I had believed had been put in front of me by all authority and adults as far as my entire life was concerned, I was like, oh, you're all full of shit. No one has any fucking idea what's good for me. I got to find out.
No.
That means I got to be willing to fucking shoot myself into space like a monkey a few times to figure out what's good for me and what's not. And so that dabbled in everything. Led me into plant medicine and everything else to try to figure out pain.
At that time, so we even crossed paths. I don't know if you remember, but with Des in Portland. We went ice cream together.
Yeah.
Who's this dude? I don't know. This dude's funny. Like, I don't know. We're all just eating ice cream. And, at that time, I think you were pretty high up in the career. I'm trying to think what year that would have been, like 2017. I don't know. Long story short, you've had this opportunity to travel and be around people and meet people in community and like some really amazing people and align yourself really well. But when you were in the throes of that, dealing with chronic pain, chronic inflammation, chronic depression, opiate dependency, or whatever it was that was in you there, what happened to those people? And was it when you were going through the thick of that, were those people going with you, or did that fall off because that you weren't part of that community anymore? Or not necessarily you weren't a part of that community, but you were in like the throes of what you were going through.
I never didn't feel that I had support.
Cool.
I did. I just didn't have any tools to answer any of the problems.
Gotcha.
In the community of guys I competed with, like I've played sports before, right? Like I know how this goes. Like everyone's focused. And if you're out of the peripheral vision, you're not part of the focus anymore. Like that's not personal. That's the way it's fucking worked for everyone who's ever left a sport. So like to be bummed about that's fucking absolutely silly. It's just fucking crazy, egotistical bullshit. But yeah, I had plenty of friends. I had plenty of people to talk to. And so really, really lucky there. And I still fucking struggled. Because I knew at some point I wouldn't compete in the Highland Games. That's fucking fine. Like I've had sports in, right? I was never prepared to not be athletic. I wasn't ever prepared that like this machine doesn't do what I tell it to.
Yeah.
And that was that first kind of peek at, oh, that's coming again. There's going to be another point in this timeline when this thing gives up. Or the brain does first. Either one. And I just feel lucky enough to be on borrowed time that it's working again.
Definitely. And I think that's something too, like when you have your health, you take it for granted. I mean, we all do.
But that's the hedonic treadmill is kind of the term for it, right? They like whatever you're used to is what you're used to. And so like a spike in something will bring it back, but eventually it returns back to whatever you allow normal to be.
Coming from opiates, going into like more natural remedies, what do you feel like worked the most for you?
I thought mushrooms were really, really interesting. Psilocybin. The first time I had probably used mushrooms was the first time for me that I remember like pain being at a 0. And I was like, oh, that's fucking neat.
Probably such a wild drop.
Well, and I guess the real difference in the way it felt, right? Because like I could take pain meds and not feel it, and I can do other things. I can even do breath or any of that to focus differently. Like I fucking learned everything I could to manage this shit. Mm-hmm. And the difference with mushrooms was it was gone. Like my CNS wasn't guarded. Like I actually got rest. Like I actually fucking down regulated for a little bit instead of spending all day breathing in my chest out of this fucking slight panic for pain and just crushing myself with cortisol levels. I actually fucking down regulated. So having that feeling was for sure something that was like, well, we will be diving more into that. And honestly, everything's been really beneficial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes, you know, we have a comment here that's saying that, you know, surviving and it's exhausting, you know, like resting in pain is not resting. Right. And I think everyone's journey definitely looks a little bit different. But it, like you're saying, is like finding your own trajectory with it and experimenting and like not being afraid to do that. Right. And fear is, you haven't mentioned fear at all. Is fear even a word like in your book?
Yeah, there's stuff I'm scared of, but like, I think it's sloppy to just let fear be the word. Why don't we say anxious or nervous or unprepared or fucking define it better, man? Mm-hmm. Fear's just too big of an overarching thing. It's like saying fucking happiness. Why don't you use joy or enthusiasm or, you know, any of these other terms that are a little bit more descriptive instead of one that's, you know, so ethereal. But fear, I mean, let's call anxiety, right? Like, I mean, I'm not doing anything that's like physically dangerous. So I don't have fear from that. So any fear just comes from uncomfortability, or does the fear come from anxiety? Because if it's anxiety, you know, it's my choice to read anxiety however the fuck I want to. Mm-hmm. And I choose to read anxiety as I give a fuck about how that turns out. That means I fucking care about the way it goes. And so that means it deserves my full fucking attention instead of walking away from it. You know, if we don't test ourselves, like no different than training, right? That if I want to create adaptation, there has to be a stress. That is either a fucking surplus or it's going to be in a deficit to get weight loss or weight gain. If I want my muscles to grow, I have to stress them out so they rebuild and come back stronger. They don't fucking do it hanging out on the couch. So why would my ability to manage anxiety, why would my ability to be able to fucking trust myself, why would my ability to be able to trust the people in my life, why would my ability to have empathy, be able to express myself, be vulnerable, why would any of these things get better if I don't push it?
It's huge. And I think it's a choice. You know, it's a choice over and over again that you make to better yourself, but you also do to experience life, right? Like an experience in life is a whole lot more than like, oh, I got the job. Oh, I did this. Like it goes back to the original kind of idea of this theme in the podcast, and this theme that I feel like you live your life by is like the journey, right?
Well,
like
that's all there is.
Process.
It's fucking all journey. There's not a destination, right? Like one of the things I talk most about with coaching clients is that there's not any books written about the view from Everest. It's not that fucking interesting. It's what you gain getting there. It's that self-reliance and self-confidence that you gained in the hero's journey. The hero's journey is a 3-part act. It is deciding that there is a dragon to slay, having a challenge. It is figuring out the tools needed, the skills needed, and sharpening your fucking axe to get ready to go. And then you go try to slay a dragon. And sometimes you get your ass kicked and sometimes you don't. But you learn either way and go find another fucking dragon to slay with all the tools that now you've acquired. And so everything I learned from being able to compete in the Highland Games, now that that's over, it's no different than what translates to me being fucking great at anything else. I know that it takes me 10 years. So we can go ahead and take off the brakes of how quick I need this to go. It takes me 10 years to be good at something. So fuck it. We're 10 years in.
Yeah.
We'll make a decision 10 years in if we like it. You know, if we can make it run right. And then from that point on, all it is the same way. I don't have an emotional attachment to if you were going to correct my squat form. So why do I fucking care about trying to get the same help for my business or strategies or my brand or myself instead of letting my ego get bruised and tell you, no, I know what I'm doing. I have no fucking clue what I'm doing. I threw rocks in a field. But I know I'm willing to figure it out.
Do you feel like you wavered in your trust in yourself? Did you ever feel like you lost the trust in yourself? Do you feel like you started to trust yourself there through, or did that come with proving to yourself through your injuries that you were able to trust your body and what it was able to do and be beginning to push that further?
There's always times. And there's always times where it's going to get fucking ugly and dark, and you got to start really questioning whether or not you trust yourself. Do it all the time. There's small ones that come every week. There's some that come every day, and there's some that come quarterly and yearly, right? Like there's waves of it. And the only thing I know for certain is they've all passed. So when I'm in it, it's going to pass. So do the great times. We keep taking fucking action to create what we want. Mm-hmm. What do the actions say we're doing? That's it. I don't have to feel a certain way about it.
I love that. So with that, with your actions to pursue entrepreneurship after being like, I'm not fucking doing this. Graduated college, I'm not doing this. I don't deserve to be in this business. Fuck this. I am out. I'm going to go get my job. What happened then? I mean, so we kind of know that the kind of timeline of like competing and that sort of thing, but like plug the businesses into there.
Yeah. So 2011, I started writing a book, Training Lab. Sorry.
Yeah, I said it wrong.
Yeah. Training Lab. So I wrote that, and it was just basically how to break down a season if you were going to compete in the Highland Games. A little tricky of a sport because you compete a lot. And so that means you're not going to be great to compete all the time. You got to fucking choose the ones that matter. Like sometimes you're not going to peak from May through September. Mm-hmm. I want to throw my best in September. So I'll just be sore in May. That's fine. But like getting that idea to people of how to actually train and prepare for that and how to build a peak. So I put all that together in the book. And one of the things I wrote about in the book was the mentality of the hate, which ended up becoming the brand. I had enough people asking me I wrote ebooks solely for the reason that the Highland Games paid a little bit of money. And I knew at some point it was going to go away. And if there was a way to make something that could possibly transition a couple bucks when that ended for a bit, that would be cool. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I wrote the book. I thought it would be valuable, and essentially everything since then has been promoting that book. But I mean, right, like it's still just trying to keep that all going. It's just spinning plates since then. But enough people started asking for shirts, and I didn't really want to make any because I had a real big boy job that was paying six figures and traveling a lot, and I don't have time to ship shit. And
go buy a shirt somewhere else.
Yeah, just like I don't have fucking time to do that. And so luckily for me at the time, a buddy of mine who now I'm business partners with, and we own the screen printing shop, and he owns the warehouse. And so he took over screen printing from there, and he's run it for me ever since. And so when I eliminated the fact that I didn't have to put anything in boxes or ship anything, and I could just focus on creating and marketing, then it became really viable. And then it became really fun.
Yeah. The hate brand you created in
2014.
And then now, like current day, we're with Not Dead Yet.
Yeah, everything is finally under the Not Dead Yet umbrella. As a lunatic creative, everyone's advice for someone should be like, you want this like world to work together. so that it supports each other. And what I had done is I had a podcast named one thing. I had a fucking coffee company named something else. I have the brand named one thing, and I have a mentorship group named something else. It's a fucking disaster. And not only that, I have so that people don't fucking pronounce right, and hate, which people don't pronounce right. Just my fucking fault. After 9 years, I'm amazed it worked as well as it has.
Well, and it did work really well. I mean, you had such good brand perception, really good reputation, dope ass stuff. Like, I mean, it was rad. So, I mean, you guys, I even made the mistake of pronouncing it wrong. So, you know, it's shit happens, right?
Yeah, I'm not offended. I'm the one who wrote it dumb.
No,
I mean, look, it's not like if you went to anything in like a business meeting and they were like, you should name your brand something that's super hard to pronounce. No.
No.
And so, and kind of as things went on, like my own taste about stuff has changed a bit, right? Like I'm not training to compete anymore. And I really felt more drawn to what not dead yet means. You know, it's still the same message, right? That I'm fucking refusing to tolerate my bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
I damn sure will not be the fucking weak link in my life.
Mm-hmm. And it's definitely a theme that I think has been continued into the Not Dead Yet brand. Like even for somebody who's like new and is like, oh, this dude did this, and yeah, I used to know him for that. And what happened to that? Oh, look at this. Next. Like it's kind of this weird little trajectory that people go with it, I think. You know, and I think a lot of your mission is the same, but you can speak to that. And was that born out of, you know, the idea of flirting with depression and suicide? Did that come from processing your grief with your dad? Did that come from the death of your ego? Did that come from the death of the process? Like where I think death in general is just something like people are like, ooh, death.
Yeah, I think all of it.
Don't talk about it. But I mean,
I think all of that. And I think switching over to being able to kind of keep myself in a very abundance oriented mindset, right? That, I mean, I'm fucking 40, man. Like at this point, especially with my guess of weeks left to live, like I'm way past half. Mm-hmm. And I'm really excited about the years in front. You know, I can't fucking wait. I'll never look back at a previous decade and think I wish I could rerun that instead of what the opportunity of the next one has. I don't want to do the same shit all the time. I think you're supposed to have chapters in your life. And I think you're supposed to move through. And if chapters for me have kind of looked like decades, you know, with, you know, you have kind of formative years, right? Is one, your first chapter. And then second chapter is basically going away from home and starting out on your own in your 20s. And then your 30s are becoming an adult. And that chapter is fucking really important. But a lot of people, that becomes the fucking coolest chapter in the book. That's a really shitty book. The fucking coolest thing happens in chapter 3. It's a shitty book. Which is the hero just coasted the rest of the time? Get fucked. No interest in that story, man.
Next.
I want to be challenged, right? Like, I mean, if we talked about that, that's where adaptation comes from. And what I'm very curious in, right, is performance enhancement. Like, I want to fucking know what I'm capable of. I want to fucking max out all the metrics. I want to know. I know how strong I could get, but that's done. Cool, sick. Move on to the next thing. I don't have to keep holding that for that to be a thing I did. Yeah. What else can I fucking do?
What has been kind of the goal lately, or what have you been playing with? Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, there's all kinds of shit out there.
Goals. So lately, my hip's been a bit more bummed since I did this big hike in May, and it's just taken a long time to chill out. And so probably start looking at hip surgery. Most likely is what I'll do. Such is life, man. I did this to the machine. Ain't nobody else fucked it up. It's been a good ride. So training is basically maintenance, trying to feel better, spending a lot of time doing yoga, mobility, sauna, cold plunge, doing all those things. Mm-hmm. However, things right now, business-wise, are really in a place that I was really hoping they would be for like the last 2 years.
Oh, it's got to feel good.
Right. And so while I'm super goal focused, I want to be very fucking present that right now I'm in a thing that I was dreaming about having happen.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Fucking pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
Live with this right now, and it'll keep taking care of the next opportunities. Like, all that matters is the fucking effort today toward what we're doing. And again, like, just having the gratitude for, like, it's here. Because it'll pass.
Mm-hmm.
And that's cool.
I think that's one thing, not to like kind of step back a couple steps, but kind of going back into the idea of like psilocybin, and, you know, it forces you to be present in the moment, but allow things to come and go. Right. And it does like kind of give you this sense of time that like in our daily, like synthetic bullshit life where we like don't do anything outside of like all this crap we touch. It does teach you a lot of that idea to be present and to be grateful for those moments, because they are just moments and they are fleeting. And it doesn't matter how great they are, and it doesn't matter how shitty they are. They're all going to go, you know, and that's all in motion, and life is all in motion. And it's, I think you just touched on a huge thing for anyone listening, no matter where they're at in life or what they're facing. Chronic illness, chronic success, chronic, who the fuck knows what, like whatever it is like, sit with it and to feel comfortable and uncomfortable and all the feelings with it, and to like name them a little bit better, you know? I mean, that's huge.
Well, I think that builds awareness. And I think I can't make a lot of change unless I get to I can shine a light on something.
Mm-hmm.
And occasionally that means I got to go in the dark to find it. But for me, after dealing with chronic pain for as long as I have, something that's going to push me to like mentally and personally uncomfortable places, let's fucking go. Like, I'm interested. I'm super interested in trying. I want to go to this darkness retreat they host up in the Pacific Northwest. There's a handful of places to do it, but it's essentially 6 days in a fucking pitch black room by yourself. I've never been that bored. Right? Like, no stimulus for 6 days.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what waking up. You don't know going to sleep. I mean, if you have dreams, right, you just wake back up to the void. You don't get to check back in. And then the other side of that is knowing that the door's unlocked and the light switch is there. You're there by choice.
Well, kind of playing on the idea of fear. I mean, some people would argue that the fear that we feel is just the unknown.
Of course. Well, it's that and ego, right? Because the ego only gives a shit about trying to keep us safe. Mm-hmm. Whether that's in our thoughts or anything else. And what it knows is whatever I'm currently thinking hasn't got me dead. So let's hold on to that. And so any fear, any change challenges it. Because then you have to be bad at a thing and you're going to be exposed and whatever the fuck that means. Because you think other people give a shit about what you're doing. They don't.
Nobody cares.
Everyone's equally as obsessed worrying about what everyone else thinks. Mm-hmm. Instead of giving a fuck about what they're really into.
Dude, yeah. I gotta ask, so I'm not a big like, ooh, let's follow people's relationships, but between you and Bonnie, if you guys don't know, Miss Bronshaw,
she's great.
Absolute badass of a human, and not just because she's just strong as shit, or has been strong as shit in many years of her life. But can you tell me about what season she came into your life in? And
she came into my life basically about the time I hit the fucking detonate button on the old existence.
Okay.
I mean, had been married for 13 years, chronic pain, was living in Louisiana, and I knew continuing with that life wasn't what I needed to do. And so I punched out. I decided to move forward with divorce and figure out what the next round of life looked like. And it's been a lot. You know, that's a super, super challenging thing. I got to spend those 13 years with another amazing woman. I've been lucky enough to have 2 incredible women love me a lot. Bonnie showed up exactly when she was supposed to. And so, as long as the universe wants to keep her around, I'm happy to keep tending that fire.
Fucking cute. Oh man, I love it though. Because it's like, I don't know. You don't need.
But I want full experience of everything, of every emotion. Like I want the fucking full sappy experience. I want the full of managing aggression and violence whenever it's time for that. Like I want the fucking full control of everything that I am. The fear, the fucking shame, the guilt, like I want to see all of it. Because where I limit myself will fucking limit the amount that I'm allowed to feel for me.
You guys, I don't know if you're getting what I'm getting out of this, but honestly, like it's you don't get to sit and listen or have such a raw opportunity to listen to somebody who's been there and done that and really who's like offering this olive branch of advice to you to say like fucking step on the gas, and that's not to say to go through life faster. That's to say like push yourself out there and go and get it. And get it. It is anything. Positive, negative, left, right, up, down, bottom, side. Like, I mean, Matt, what type of if nobody's gotten anything out of this, I don't know what the fuck you're doing with your life. But if you were to kind of like, you do this in your coaching company, you do it on social media, you offer a handout to people all the time. And you say, don't want it, I'm still going to offer it. It's there. Because it's not for you, it's for me.
And also, I don't give a fuck if you want to chase your dreams.
Dude.
I'm going to surround myself with people that are. Mm-hmm. That door is fucking open for anyone who's interested. But if you think I'm wasting any of my energy and time convincing you to give a fuck about your life, I don't care. I don't want to be around motherfuckers who get it. People that want the most out of themselves. People that want to figure out like what personal greatness looks like. Like unless you're tested, why would it expose what you're capable of? It's not like if you don't sprint for 10 years, you still keep the ability to sprint. Your body will shut down what you don't use. And if you're not going to force greatness out of yourself, why would your system, your brain, your body ever give it to you? It's got to be demanded.
And regularly, right?
Well, so that's one of those things that I find really like a hack for like using the sauna and the cold plunge. Mm-hmm. I love all the Huberman science shit, but again, I'm a fucking caveman who threw rocks in a field. So that stuff's happening whether I care about it or not, because that's how science works. But what I like about both those tools is it gives me a chance every single day to get to a point of just discomfort that I have to override the voice that says we should stop doing this. And that gives me a chance to flex that muscle. So whenever it shows up, and I didn't expect it, because I know it's coming for this. But whenever it shows up, I'll be like, we know who you are. You also show up way too fucking early. You will try to start talking me out of this way before it's a fucking real problem. I'm like, yeah, I know that voice is there. I'm not trying to pretend he isn't. Mm-hmm. No reason to lie to me.
Well, and it's almost like, everyone's a really good researcher these days, right?
Sure.
And it's like, honestly, like, just do some fucking research on yourself.
Well, just fuck around and find out, right? Like, use that term. Mm-hmm. Just fucking do an experiment. Quit making assumptions about shit and have an experience before you have an opinion. Yeah, I was for so long would have been really happy to write off all of the awareness and kookery shit from Tony Robbins to anyone else and just been like, this is fucking weirdo shit that people need to go do. Yeah. And then at some point I was like, how about before you have that opinion, read one book instead of me basing this entire assumption off of whatever. Mm-hmm. And the fucking truth is those people are incredible. Those people that can hold fucking power of voice that way,
Mm-hmm.
We go back 500 or 600 years. We just call these people wizards. That's what they're doing. I mean, they're casting spells. They're getting people to change their state from the power of their voice. We just put them in business suits now. It makes us more comfortable than robes, I suppose.
No masks. Come on.
That's magic. And especially when you pile it into a room filled with intention that wants to go the right way. You fucking peel the brakes off of people where they've been limiting themselves or surrounded by people who fucking say you can't. There's not any rules to this life thing. You can do whatever the fuck you want.
And just do something. You know? And do a lot of something.
Or have the life that's handed to you. But you can't have it both ways. You chose it. You chose it too. If you're not happy doing what you're doing, like no one fucking issued you that job. Make a decision. Like that's the biggest thing. Anyone I work with or any of that, fucking decision. Let's make decisions and let's fuck stuff up. And as soon as we get over the idea that failing's a problem and not part of this whole process, because our education system's fucking stupid. Because the way it works is that we study, and have a test, right? And then we don't re-go over and then we just move to the next test, or we have to memorize shit to move on to the next test. But in life, what ends up fucking happening to people is they study, but because nobody else puts a fucking test in front of them, they never take action. And instead, it's test, learn, retry. That's the only way you make progress. Try something, did it work, move forward. Fucking indecision kills more dreams than wrong decisions ever will.
The wizardry, the magic of Matt. And it's so true, you know? And it's just fucking, oh, you guys, it's been such an honor to host you, Matt. I can't thank you enough. I can't thank you enough. And I can't thank you enough because this platform, like the Swole Friends, right? The idea is to sit down with friends and sit down one-on-one and talk with humans so that the people who listen and the community that we serve can say, I deserve better. And they say, fuck yeah, I'm going to be inspired. I'm going to do this shit. I'm not going to do what he did, but I'm going to apply what he did to his life.
I want to be surrounded by people who give a fuck about their life the same way I do. I don't care what the pursuit is.
Yep.
But there's got to be fucking pursuit.
And there's got to be the standard by which you hold yourself to. Because nobody else can.
Habits and consistency, right? Like that's the only thing that'll predict whatever you turn out to be. What you say doesn't mean shit. Feel really weird? Chances are your fucking actions and what you think about yourself are out of alignment. I mean, ask yourself, if you were to be watched all day like a goddamn character in the Sims video game and I couldn't read your thoughts and what you're going on inside, right? I just watched you all day action. Would I think what's important to you be the same thing that you think's important to you? Or what do your actions tell me that is important to you all day? I want those two things to line up.
It's big. It's super big. Matt, thank you for your time today. I appreciate it. Thank you to our listeners, to our watchers. I want you guys to go give him a follow on Instagram. Reach out to him, go visit Not Dead Yet, go read about it, go snag a shirt, grab some sweet apparel. And the reason isn't, oh, grab a shirt from this dude. It's to say, like, I align with this guy, I align with those values, I align with the way he lives his life, and I want those things for myself too.
Look, what I would rather people do is like use the link in my bio and get to our free Facebook group and be able to get on calls with us.
Oh, dude, yes, that's huge.
I'd rather that. Like, I want community. I mean, that's why we've opened the gym here in St. Louis. That's why it's free. That's why, like, I can put my hand up and be like, anyone looking for this type of weirdos, we're over here.
Oh, yeah, that's big. So for our audio listeners, we're at Matthew P.
Yep.
Like Paul, Vincent. That's going to be Instagram. Go to the link in his bio. Go join the community. Go be a part of the discussion. Go learn more, apply more, fear more, do more, all of that shit. if you're out there, go visit the gym, reach out, say what's up, give Bonnie a follow.
Yeah.
Ladies, go give Bonnie a follow. She's going to inspire the hell out of you. And, you know, I can't thank you enough, Matt, for your time. I mean, I've said
of course. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Especially, I love that you have that you do the podcast.
For sure. I appreciate it. I don't have ice cream. You know, that's kind of the bummer. There's no salt and straw here. But, you know, we'll get ice cream another time. So
hell yeah.
All right.
Pass through.
We'll make it happen. It'll be rad. Okay, you guys, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel Swolverine. Make sure to subscribe to the Swole Friends podcast. We will be posting the audio for our audio listeners a little bit later. Catch up with you later, Matt. Thank you.